Okay, if we're writing PowerShell scripts, at some point we're going to need to interact with the user. So somebody runs the script. At some point we're either going to want to give them information or we're going to want to get information from them. Now there are two commandlets that we will use to do this quite a bit. They are Write-Host and Read-Host. So Write-Host we use to just output text to the screen. So Write-Host, this is something on the screen, and it outputs that on our screen. So in a script, I can use the Write-Host to give a user information. I can use it to give updates. I can use it to whatever. I can use it to give the user information. That's the purpose of Write-Host. Now, there are some other options to Write-Host. So if I do a git help Write-Host, we're going to see, here's my syntax, Write-Host, say what I'm going to write, and then I can set background colors, I can set foreground colors. I can choose not to put things on a new line. And then common parameters is a block of parameters. And if you do the detailed one, it'll show you all of them. So I can do this. Let me clear my screen. Write-Host. This is some text. I want to set a foreground color of red. I want to set a background color of dark green. That's awful to read, but well, you see that it works there. So you can use Write-Host to output information to whoever's running your scripts. Now at some point, especially if you're running an interactive script, and there are three ways we can write scripts. We can write really simple scripts that require no user interaction, but other than, no user input, let me put it that way. They require no user input. But those are going to be really limited. They're going to have one function, and they can only do that one function. If we want to add variability to the script, then we need to have some kind of user input. And so we can write scripts that do require user input in two different ways. We can write them as interactive scripts or a parameterized script. Now, most of the PowerShell commands are going to be parameterized, which means I like Write-Host. I type Write-Host and I give it all of the parameters and then it executes. An interactive script wouldn't work that way. With an interactive script, I'd type Write-Host and hit enter, and it would pop up and say, what do you want to write? And I'd type in the text and hit enter. And it would say, what do you want for the foreground color? And I'd type that and hit enter. And then it'd say, what do you want for the background color? And I'd type that and hit enter. And then it would execute. That's the difference. Now, for an interactive script to work, we need to be able to read information from the user. And we do that using the command ReadHost. Now, you can't just run ReadHost. Well, you can, but it's not really useful to just run ReadHost by itself. Because what happens, you type ReadHost and then you type the prompt. Enter a number. And it will prompt you, enter a number, and it'll sit and wait for you to put in a number. And I'm going to put in the number 5. And then it has nothing to do with that, so it just dumps it back out. So it's really not that useful. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to capture whatever the user puts into a variable. Now, in PowerShell, we define variables with a $sign. So I'm going to do $num1. Notice now this shows up as green. So $num1 equals, and the equal sign in PowerShell is not a comparison operator, it's an assignment operator. So I don't say num1 equals num2 and it will say yes or no. If I say num1 equals num2, what it does is it takes the value in num2 and stuffs it into a new variable called num1. So it's an assignment operator, not a comparison operator. The comparison operator is -eq. And you can run git help for about comparison operators and find way more on comparison operators. PowerShell has a bunch of them. So I'm going to say $num1 equals ReadHost, enter a number. And so now the ReadHost gives me that prompt, enter a number. It sits there and waits for me to put in a value. And once I give the value, so up here, I didn't tell it what to do with that. So it got to the end of the script and it just dumped out whatever was left in the pipeline, and that was the number 5. But now it takes that number 5 and it assigns it to $num1. So if I want to see what's in $num1, all I have to do is type $num1 and it will tell me. Or I can get really fancy and do Write-Host. The number you entered was $num1. And I'll say the number you entered was 5. Let me run back up and change this. Change that to 247. So num1 equals read host, enter a number. Write host, the number you entered was 247. And now we have a way to interact with the user in an interactive script. So using ReadHost, Write-Host, we can interact with the users of our scripts.